Hi everyone, it's Andrew Murchie here with an exclusive tutorial for AE Tuts Plus. Welcome back to part 2. In part 1 of this tutorial we covered creating this rather unusual scene of some eyeballs coming flying out of a tunnel. The tunnel's been created with a sort of fractal noise, and the eyeballs are all animated, and we're actually pretty much now ready to go into our adapting this or making the changes that we need to do for to make it stereoscopic. We've got a nice sort of organic-y feel to the animation by wiggling the camera and wiggling the eyeballs as well. So without any further ado, let's get into the stereoscopic part of this process. At this point, I would suggest you're going to need your 3D glasses to hand most of the time. Okay, so we'll stop the animation. I'm going to go to a point here where we can actually see the eyeballs where they're pretty far forward. We're not actually moving the camera in this, although we could. And if we move the camera, we might want to adjust parameters as we move. But let's just stop at this point around about 6 seconds. Now there's various options for creating the stereoscopic views for this, but in essence what you want to do is you need to create a left view and a right view. And we do this by having two cameras that are pretty much, well, they are identical with a slight horizontal offset from each other, and that's pretty much it. We can have them parallel, or we can have them actually slightly toeing in. But again, these can be adjusted obviously by simply adjusting your second camera. Now you would have seen when I started this this particular animation, I opened up a empty version of my own virtual rig that I use, which if you're a subscriber to AE Tuts Plus, you'll be able to download as part of this file. And that has pretty much everything already preset in it for us to work from. Now there's various other options which I will cover at the end of this part of the tutorial. However, I thought just for simplicity we have to take some kind of stance, so I'm going to show you pretty much the file that I'm working on and how I would have done everything, perhaps up until CS5, which obviously has its own built-in rig, so I might actually change my working practices. So what we've got here though in the file is we've got the master scene that we've done the animation in. So this is a standard 3D scene within After Effects, and then when I'm using 3D in this sense, I'm not using in the sense of stereoscopic 3D, I'm simply saying a 3D scene, so it's got Z space. We have in this file, or I have set up therefore a left view, which as you can see is identical to the master scene. Now this is done by the camera dolly in the master scene actually operates a dolly in the left scene, which operates a left-hand camera. So as you can see, I've effectively got another camera looking into exactly the same scene. Now in the right scene, which again is actually identical to the master scene at the moment, we've got the same. We've got a right dolly that's operating the right camera. Now where the magic hopefully starts to happen is actually in the stereoscopic preview here. Now in here we've got the left view and the right view, and we've got them overlaid on each other, and we've actually set the channels, so the left one only shows the red channel, and so the right one shows the green and blue channels. And by adding this one, by adding the left to the right, we're effectively getting back to the same point as we are. But what really does the trick here now is when we start to adjust the space between the cameras. At the moment we have the camera interaction, which is the space between left and right cameras, set at 0, so there's no space between them, therefore you get an absolutely flat view. We've also got the rotation of the camera, oh, I did a little whistle, the rotation of the camera set to 0, so the camera is also just pointing parallel, the same as your eyes would. But so effectively you've got two cameras looking at the same scene, so you get no 3D effect at all. Let me take a little sip of my coffee after saying all that. So let's get our 3D glasses on now, because this is when the excitement happens. Okay, so here we are in the 3D scene, and let's start to adjust the camera then. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll adjust interaxial of the camera. If you've got your 3D glasses on, you can actually watch this, and This is really why I do this, because it's just, I love when we do this and we just sort of start to see the depth. Now, if you're looking at that with your mouse, you can bring your mouse in here. You can actually, if you put your mouse there, you can pretty much see that that eyeball is pretty much at the same level of the mouse, so it's therefore at screen level. This eyeball, though, is now floating above the screen, and the background is hopefully way in the background. So this is really nice. This is what I love about 3D. You can see it just happening beautifully. Now, the one thing that you notice, and this is really going to be the I think the most exciting bit for me. The one thing you'll see is that that background is just a flat plane way off in the background. Now that's good, that's fine. You know, we've created 3D with minimal effort. We've created 3D. However, we haven't got that tunnel yet. Now, this is where we're going to jump back into our master scene, and we're going to take that fractal noise. We're going to copy it, and I'm going to switch it off in the main view. And the reason for that is we want to generate individual left and right views ourselves by creating another, by using another effect that we can use within this. So what I've done is I've now stuck fractal noise into the left and right views. Now at the moment, back in the stereoscopic preview, what you're going to get is no different, because we've done just the same as what we had by looking at the master scene. What we're going to do though is we're now going to warp the right view so that we distort it using another method of creating 3D, which is talked about quite a lot, which is displacement mapping. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to create a new composition. Again, we'll keep it to the same size we've been working to, and then within this composition, let's do a new solid. Fine. And then within here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a ramp. So in here, generate ramp. Black and white's perfect. That's exactly what we want. However, we want a radial ramp. Now, if this starts to make sense to you, well, I'm hoping this will start to make sense to you when you see it. What happens with displacement mapping in 3D is you displace the view of the one eye, not the other one. So in other words, we'll keep the left as it is and we'll displace the view for the right eye. Now we need a displacement map to do that. You could create an animated one, which is great as well, but again, probably beyond the scope of this tutorial. In this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to create a nice basic ramp that will create the tunnel. Anything that is dark will go within the screen, and anything that's not that's dark, anything that's black will be the deepest point of the screen, and anything that's white will be the highest point. Now we probably don't want to take it to pure white, because that would make things jump out the side of the screen, and of course because we're cropping it, that would actually give you a really weird visual look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it down here. Again, this is the great thing about having After Effects and not filming, is that we can actually adjust these things as we go. So we'll set it round about there, about what, 25% of the way down, and then we can experiment with this. One other thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to also take this fractal noise and I'm going to copy that into this and paste it over there. Now this will all become clear shortly. I'm going to take off the hue and saturation and leave it as black and white. Now the reason I'm doing this is, as you can see, you've got really interesting and involving textures going on here. Now what this will do, by adding this into the mix, this will, instead of creating something that is just flat going into a tunnel, will actually create kind of spikes and more organic-y shapes coming through it. So as you can see, anything that's white, so something like this will actually rise up. So we can give it a kind of gnarled, I can't really explain it, gnarled, more organic-y look. So again, this is something that, especially working in After Effects, when we pretty much are working with, you know, flat 3D planes, this is something that gives a much more organic-y feel. So I'm going to take something like that and maybe do something like soft light. That's not bad. There's a few options here. Maybe multiply. I'll maybe try multiply, but I'll actually take the transparency down a bit. So we've got that effect. We've got some organic-y bits, but you know, we don't have just that flat tunnel. Again, this is no, definitely not lighten. Sorry, what am I doing? Add. That's maybe a bit too much. Darken. Darken's not bad either. Let's try like that and see what it looks like. Okay, so let's so I should have called this, let's call comp 1 here. We'll just call this bump map. Okay, then we'll jump back to our right view, and right under fractal noise there we'll pop the bump map. Now we made it in its own composition because it needs to be pre-comped anyway. And fractal, select fractal noise. We're going to heat into effect, distort, and we're going to do displacement map. And then, oh, that's gone a bit wonky. What we don't want is we don't want any displacement on the vertical, so we'll switch that to 0. And on the horizontal, we want to use lightness. And let's set it to somewhere around 40. And we'll see how that looks. Oh, sorry, I haven't set that. Set that to bump map, otherwise it's trying to do it to itself. Now, what you can see here in this view is, if we switch it off, you can see it's kind of got that distortion just of the end of the tunnel. So without further ado, let's jump back to stereoscopic preview, get our glasses on, and hopefully with a little luck, well, more than a little luck, this is hopefully skill, this is what we're doing, what we're learning. We actually now have a tunnel that goes right into the background there of your screen and comes out. Now, if you look at things like this, you can definitely see there's organic-y swirls and lines with this. So it's not just a straight flat tunnel. Do also, I guess, be a little bit forgiving for looking at this in anaglyph. If you actually watch this on a 3D TV, which we'll cover the output shortly, if you watch this on a 3D TV or using a better system than anaglyph, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, absolutely amazing. Anaglyph, using the old red cyan anaglyph glasses is all well and fine for, you know, basic looking at it. But when you see this on a 3D TV in all its glory, it is absolutely beautiful. So there we go. Let's maybe give this a playthrough and we'll see how it's done. So there we go, that's looking pretty good. We've got these eyeballs flying out from the distance and flapping their way along, checking out this tunnel as they go, which I think looks great. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, one of the other things we can adjust. Now let's perhaps jump again, sorry, to the 6-second mark. Yes, 6-second mark this time. The other thing we can adjust is we can actually adjust the rotation on the cameras. Now what you'll see again, if you've got your 3D glasses on, we already spotted that we've got this eyeball's pretty much at the screen plane. This one's slightly above it, and the one in the front is right out where, and you can see everything in the background goes way, way deep into the screen. Now you might want to adjust this. Let's say you wanted all the eyeballs to be above the screen. We can actually adjust the angle of the camera. We can tone in a bit more now. Bear with me as I adjust this. You can. The beautiful thing about having a system like this is we can adjust it while we watch it. Okay, it might drop the resolution a bit. So let's try something like that. And there we go. Now we've got all the eyeballs out of the screen. So you can see if we take our mouse near it, that eyeball is probably as far out as the front one originally was, and the front eyeball is now way out of the screen. What if we wanted all the eyeballs to be inside the screen? And you might want this if you're creating something with a small screen size, especially. It's more typical to actually keep things within the screen because it starts to look odd when they come floating out. So there, we've moved, well, pretty much moved that front eyeball to the screen layer, and that means that everything else is behind him. He's maybe a wee bit above the screen, but as you can see, you can just do this visually. One of the other things that's built into my ED3D rig is a 1 degree increment rig, which obviously kind of gets in the way. However, if you take your glasses off, you can actually zoom in here, and you'll actually see in a lot of stereoscopic literature, they talk about the percentage offset. Now, percentage offset is essentially the percentage of the width of the screen. Now again, when you're creating 3D for different screen sizes, you would work at different percentages. Or sorry, you wouldn't exceed certain percentages, and you would control where the 3D is. So you can actually see each one of these lines represents 1 degree. Or sorry, 1%. I said degree, 1%. So our actual percentage offset in the foreground here, at the most extreme, which is over here, is probably not even 1 degree. However, in the background, it's probably more, and it's I haven't got anything set up to test it. It'd probably be best to build a test frame at the beginning that has got more vertical and horizontal lines, so you can actually check that, because checking it on the scene obviously is kind of difficult with everything moving into the background. So I've got a particularly loud plane coming overhead. So let's switch the grid off so we can see it. So that's how I would go about creating the stereoscopic part, or the stereoscopic section for this particular animation, or the stereoscopic adjustment for it. Just a quick recap then is we built everything, put everything in the master scene, including our background there, just so we could see it when we're animating. Then from there, the rig auto-created the left view and the right view, which now, by the way, seeing as we've changed the settings, the master settings, you can see are now actually different. And our stereoscopic preview there is built for us to actually to see what it looks like, so we can adjust it. Now, the final step, we'll come back to actually discussing other ways of creating 3D, but our final step here is to actually look at output options. So what we have here is an anaglyph preview. Now you can export this. I mean, it's the same as any other composition. You can export it, and you will get exactly what you have there, which is an anaglyph preview. Anaglyph isn't great. Red sunglasses, very, very cheap. The only reason that it's so common is their glasses are actually so cheap and easy to distribute. Other solutions obviously require certain levels of technology. One of the very popular ones, and certainly one that I get a lot of traffic on, is YouTube. Now, the YouTube format is a left and right view, which sit in one HD composition next to each other. So essentially what we've got is we've got the left composition, which we had there. Oh, no, I've jumped there. We have got the left composition on the left, and as you can see here, it's scaled by 50% in its width, but it retains 100% depth or height. And then on the right hand side of that, we've got the right view, which again is scaled 50%. So you can see what we've simply got is an animation with a left view and a right view in one HD file. And that, when you upload it to YouTube, you use the tag that's YT enable equals LR, which is left first then right. So you always have LR. You could do it RL, but their preferred option is LR. This particular format will also play on most 3D TVs that I know of. Certainly my Panasonic, you switch it to, it has an option to view LR. So this you could burn onto a Blu-ray or onto a DVD in some kind of format. DVD ROM, ROM. I don't know what I'm talking about. Burn onto DVD in some format, and if you select left and right, it'll play. Another format you might use is above and below. Now the Tri-Def player, which I know ships on some laptops, uses this format where you've got the left, I believe, at the top. Is it? Yep, left at the top and right at the bottom. And similar to the previous one, we've what you've got is you have the height, in this case, scaled by 50%. So it's really just different formats for stacking videos. Now, if you wanted to create a a full HD side-by-side output, that's exactly the same. You're just not going to squash them. However, when you're outputting, you will note you won't be able to output in quite a lot of formats. You can certainly output an MP4 when you've got a full left and right HD view next to each other. As you can imagine, it's a pretty big file size, so you need to put your data rate up. Okay, so we've covered quite a lot there. Hopefully I've covered pretty much everything, and if you're using this file, which as I said you can download if you're a subscriber to AE Tuts, if you're using this file, well, it's all there ready for you. Now if you're not using this file, what are your options? Okay, well, your options would be exactly the same process. Build your master scene, make sure you've got everything in 3D space. If you're using CS 5.5, then the camera rig will actually, once you've got this built, you can create a stereoscopic camera rig, which in essence does the same. It creates a left view and a right view and a preview view. The other option is you could use something like Chris Keller scripts, which if you do a search around, or I'm sure we can include the information on any documentation about this, Chris's scripts will actually create, once you've created your master view, you run a script which will then create the left and right view and a preview. So again, pretty much the same, just a slightly different process of actually getting there. Again, you may still have to adjust for the right and left issue with the bump map, because what we're doing is we're not actually creating a master scene with the bump map in the fractal tunnel. That's a sort of separate step. Finally, and actually quite simply, to tell you the truth, is you create the master scene, duplicate it twice, call one left, call one right, and then manually move the camera. You're moving the camera left and right and you're angling it slightly. It's really not that tricky to do, because you can have your stereoscopic preview actually open while you're adjusting by simply locking it. Then you can actually adjust the camera in your right view. You only have to adjust one camera, because one camera always stays the same. So you could do that manually as opposed to having it all automated by using a rig. Obviously, if you're doing a lot of 3D, this rig system is by far the easiest way, and it's certainly what I've used on all my projects, which have certainly gone well and had a lot of views. Whew, that's been a long tutorial. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this. It's great to be doing something on AE Tuts, on AE Tuts Plus. Sorry, they're a great resource, and obviously have a great lot of stuff. If I can just take a moment to mention that this tutorial is actually based on an animation that is part of a set that we do on Enhanced Dimensions called Rock Candy. And within Rock Candy there's a whole lot of royalty-free resources that, if you're looking for that kind of thing, not this kind of thing, because this is kind of quite an unusual one with the flying eyeballs, but if you're looking for music-based royalty-free media, certainly there's a whole load of stuff within there. And keep an eye out for extra tutorials that will be coming along, which are all based on using the Rock Candy materials. So thank you very much for your time and your patience. I do hope this has been helpful to you, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoyed taking part as much as I've enjoyed making it. Hopefully I'll be back here on AE Tuts, unless flying eyeballs are going to push them over the edge. So yeah, I look forward to speaking to you again in the future. Thanks a lot, and have a nice day, and enjoy your 3D crazy stereoscopic stuff. Okay, bye now.